You may have heard that Java is an object-oriented programming language. And what that means is that it supports classes and objects. What are classes and objects? Well, classes are just entities in the real world, just prototypes of those entities, and objects are real instances of these prototypes. So for example, we could have a student class, and you can imagine what a student looks like. What is the prototype of a student? You might think a student has certain attributes. A student might have a first name, a last name, some grades associated with them, and an ID. But students also have some behaviors that can be applied to them or that they can do themselves. So for example, you can calculate the average grade of a student. So that would be a behavior that's acted on the student. Now there can be instances of a student. These are what we call objects in Java. So these are actual instances of our prototype, real life students. So here we have Sam Smith, and they have certain grades associated with them and an ID. And then we have Jessica Brown, and she has certain grades associated with her with an ID. And of course, we have Bianca Rose. So you can have as many objects as you want, and each one of them you can calculate the average grade for them. So obviously when we calculate the average grade for Sam, we'll be using Sam's grades and not any of the other instances to make that calculation. Same thing with Jessica Brown. We'll calculate the average of 198 in her case if we try calculating her average grade. Another example can be a car. So a car has certain attributes. It can have a model. It can have a brand associated with it, a mileage. It can even have a year. And there's certain behaviors that a car can do. It can drive. It can stop. So instances of a car are real cars. So for example, a Honda Civic with 10,000 miles on it. Maybe your friend has a Honda Civic with 10,000 miles. So this is an instance of a car. Another example is a Lexus IS250. It's got 500 miles. Finally, one more example is a bank account. You can imagine that any bank account has an account number, a name, and an amount associated with it. And there's certain behaviors that you can do on a bank account or a bank account itself can do. For example, you can deposit money into your bank account, you can withdraw money out of your bank account, and you can check the balance of your bank account. So here I have some examples of instances of a bank account. We have Jennifer Lopez. She has a lot of money in her bank account, and her account number is this. So you can try to grab her money because this is her real account number. Then we have Jeff Bezos. Of course, I have his account number as well, and he's got a whole bunch of money. And then somehow, unfortunately, I only have $0. Maybe I just made a new bank account, and here it is. So these are just instances of the class bank account. So in Java, the way we write a class is by writing an access modifier. Don't worry about this public. This is the access modifier here. I will talk about it in the next video. But following this access modifier, you will have to write the word class. You need to specify that this is a class, and you write class in all lowercase, followed by the name of your class. It's customary to start your class name with a capital letter. So here I have bank account. You have your opening curly brace and a closing curly brace, and within here is where you're going to put your attributes and your behaviors. In Java, we call these behaviors methods. So we're going to switch the naming there a little bit. We're going to call any behavior a method in Java. So here's an example of the bank account with its attributes and one method here for checking balance. So here we have our attributes, and they're just variables like we've seen before. We have the data type of the variable and the variable name, account number. We have string data type for our name, and we have double for the amount. So these are the three variables that we're going to store for every bank account that we create. And each bank account we create is going to have an account number associated with it, a name, and an amount. And then we're going to be able to check the balance of that account. So when we make our method, we specify return type. We'll talk about that a little later. We give the method a name. We put some parentheses for the method. Notice that the attributes don't have parentheses. They're just variables, but the method will have parentheses, an opening, and a curly brace. And then in here is where your code for how you're going to get the computer to actually check the balance of this bank account, that will go in here. And of course, I have ... here because we did see more behaviors for bank account. I just didn't write them here. And now we have objects, instances of a class. So how do we actually make a real bank account? So the way we do it is For example, we have our bank account class here, and somewhere else we have another class. Oops, here we go. So somewhere else we have another class. So we've been seeing the public class, main class, or whatever you want to call it, with our main method. Remember, all Java execution starts in a main method. So here we have our main method. We're going to jump into the code when the program starts, and what we're going to do is make a bank account variable. So the data type now, remember before we were using int and we were using string and other data types. Now the data type is going to be the class we want. So we're making a bank account. So here we write the class name, bank account. We give it a name, Alex's bank account. So this is a real instance of a bank account. And we always have to say equals new bank account. So we're saying let's make a new instance of bank account, followed by parentheses here, semicolon, of course, and then we can system.out.println the check balance. So check balance is actually going to return what the amount is. So don't worry too much about what this return does, but just know that the way you can call methods on an object is by putting a dot and then the name of the method followed by parentheses. So this will actually call the method check balance on our object.